Warning.
This is the most important
podcast
of our lifetime.
Hello, everyone.
What is Hapatarian?
So what is Hapa? So when you put together Hapatarians, what is that?
You know the thing.
They're here to awkward it up for you guys.
Which is a very interesting and beautiful mix of humanity.
Anyone who has a podcast,
You're an extremist.
Shut up!
all right, let's get to it. Hey, what's happening? And welcome to the Hapatarians Show, the number one podcast that says they are the number one podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and in the comments, tell us how much you love the Hapa ethno-state. Our guest today is someone who is living the American dream of quitting his full-time day job to become a full-time podcaster. It's the host of Who Are These Podcasts and the co-host of Who Are These Socials and the Creep Off. It's Karl Hamburger. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing very well, Shane. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me and our audience. So I guess just kind of dive right in. Talk about because you have 3 podcasts. I guess you can consider yourself a prolific podcaster because you have more than one podcast. But kind of just talk about what started, how you started with Who Are These Podcasts and the Creep Off, and then I know Who Are These Socials is the most recent one.
Yeah. So Who Are These Podcasts started up because my buddy Kevin, who was my co-host on the show when we originally started it, him and I played in a band together, and it's an instrumental rock band. We don't talk on stage, but we have these announcements between songs. So the Ice Ups announcer, and he did the voiceover for that. So we'd get together before all the shows and write jokes because it's a comedy band. So we'd write jokes and record these announcements and then play them at the show. And in that time, we were both trying to write jokes for the shows and trying to make each other laugh. And it was a good time. Well, he quit the band and then moved all the way to Seattle and then to Portland. I'm in Rochester, New York. So he was the other side of the world as far as I was concerned. But we would still record these jokes together. We'd get on like a Skype or something and get together and try to make each other laugh and record jokes. Well, Kevin was also a stand-up at the time. And he was thinking, this is back in 2015, late 2015, early 2016. He's like, we should maybe do a podcast together. So I said, love it. Let's do that. I'm a huge radio nerd. He was too. Big fans of Opie and Anthony and the Howard Stern show and stuff like that. So I decided my favorite segment on Opie and Anthony was Jocktober, this segment they would do where they would pick apart other morning radio shows and goof on them. They'd play clips and goof on them. So I said, what if we did that, but for podcasts instead? Who are these podcasts? Was born, and Kevin and I would come on every week, every Saturday. We'd get together, record these shows. It was just my hobby. I play in bands, like I said. I was doing the podcast. It was just one of my hobbies, and I had a lot of fun with it.
So what about the Creep Off that you co-host with Vinny? How did that whole thing start?
That was all Vinny. So Vinny's been doing podcasting and things long before I ever did. He's a comedian. He's a stand-up. And actually, he had a show on a local UHF channel here back when that was a thing. And I used to go and guest on his show. And he's been doing podcasting from his house for over a decade. Like, he was doing it long before most people were. And I would guest on his show from time to time. And so when Who Are These Podcasts started picking up steam, like, I had him on the show every now and again. But his whole thing is he loves talking about true crime and really creepy true crime stuff. That's his thing. So he called me up one day and he goes, Karl, I got an idea for a show. And he laid out everything that is the Creep Off. We both had to bring creeps in a certain category. We compete against each other. Someone will win every week based on audience vote. After you win a certain number of times, the other person has to spin a wheel of consequences. We'll do a scum parade. We'll do other news stories that are happening in the world of creeps. And all this stuff sounded great to me. And I went, all right, well, that sounds fun. I'll do that. So I signed on. That's about 3 years ago. I signed on with him and we started doing the Creep Off. But it's funny because were you ever a fan of The Biggest Problem in the Universe with Dick Masterson and Maddox?
I can't say I was, no.
Okay, so I learned about them from doing Who Are These Podcasts. Someone reached out and they said, you got to check out this show. It's really a great show. And it is, or it was, it's a different show now, but because Dick and Maddox had a falling out. But they had this show that was also a contest where they would try to bring in what they thought was the biggest problem in the universe. People would vote online and then they come back and tell you how the voting went. And it was funny because when Vinny came to me with this idea, he wasn't a fan of that show and I was. And I'm like, dude, this is kind of like Biggest Problem, which I'm a huge fan of. I love the audience interaction angle. I love the competition, the hosts who are working with each other, but also competing against each other at the same time. It's kind of fun. So it all just made sense to me. And so that's why we started doing the Creep Off, which we do every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the Creep Off YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know you also do Who Are These Socials with Blind Mike, that's one that I every time it goes on live, I try and catch it and watch it. So it's always a good time with that. And
thank you. That's on at I'll just say real quick, Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We do Who Are These Socials. My buddy Blind Mike and I go on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel live. We also put it out as a podcast if you can't check it out live, or you can watch it whenever. But anyway, the point is that we just look at TikTok videos and Reddit threads and Twitter and just make fun of people. It's fun.
So that kind of branches off to something that I wanted to get a little more of a deep dive on you is, I know you've mentioned a few times on your podcast that you consider yourself a libertarian or libertarian leaning, you can
Sure.
say. And on Who Are These Socials, one of the people that you guys have consistently talked about is this guy. I guess his YouTube channel is Delete Lawsy or something like that, how you pronounce it or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's just some guy. I'm going to try and describe him as best I can. Is some guy who he's one of those guys that believes all cops are bastards or all cops are bad or whatever.
He thinks any traffic stop will likely end in the driver being murdered by the police officer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous. It's so over the top ridiculous. You're like, all right, buddy, relax. I know that there's militarization of our police and there's some issues there,
Right.
but you're overplaying your hand here with this.
Yeah, he's making people that are anarchists who completely hate the cops go, I think the cops have a point here. I think maybe you should stop doing what you're doing.
100% right. I immediately take the police officer's side when this guy gets involved in a situation. I'm like, all right, you're just being an asshole. Shut up.
So yeah, I guess kind of on that note, like how did you get to become a libertarian or kind of get interested in that whole political realm?
It's funny. When I was younger, I was definitely very liberal, considered myself a Democrat, as I think all young people do. And I'm still, as far as like, let everybody do whatever the fuck they want. I still feel that way. I'm very socially liberal. I don't care what anybody does, as long as it doesn't affect other people, obviously. I'm not a religious guy or anything like that. And then I kind of got conservative for a while, and I was kind of big on, when George W. came in and after 9/11, and it's like, yeah, let's go to Afghanistan. Let's go to Iraq. I was on board with all of that. I feel stupid now because I've now become so anti-war. And I think that's really my main platform. I don't know what libertarian means because it means a lot of things to a lot of people. I know that I don't like big government. I know I don't like a lot of laws. I know I don't like a lot of taxes. But I hate war. I hate what this country represents is the fact that we're just like fucking with people all the time. And it's just, we're printing money to do it and taxing people like you and me. And I don't agree with any of it. So that's why I'd like us to, be more focused on like us. If Texas became its own country, I'd probably move there.
Oh, so you're a big supporter of the Texit movement.
I was, yeah. I had conversations during the pandemic lockdown, which was brutal. I was not a fan of that. My wife is self-employed. She's a hairstylist. And our wonderful governor at the time, Andrew Cuomo, shut down her business. She was not allowed to work, which is, anti-constitution, obviously.
Right.
But I remember having a conversation with her because she was losing her mind. And I'm like, oh, should we just move to Texas? Do you want to just move to like anywhere where there's like freedom still exists? Because that would be cool. But anyway, I'm actually we just bought a house in Florida. So
Oh,
that's another
oh,
place where they like freedom. So we thought
yeah.
that'd be a good thing to do.
Wow, you're following the wave of everyone moving to Florida.
Well, you know what? So it's a second house, and we're still going to live up here in New York. But I like the idea that if shit goes down again, because it will, because that
Yeah.
was a test to see if people would go along with it, and most people did. So as soon as they try to shut down society again, I'm getting on I don't care if I have to ride a horse or whatever I have to do to get down to my house in Florida and experience freedom. Hopefully that's still going on down there at that time.
Yeah, so I don't know if you keep up with a lot of the libertarian politics or any of that on Twitter, especially because I've seen some libertarians who, they were fine with the lockdowns. Oh yeah, get your shot, wear a mask, it's
Really?
fine. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I don't keep
Yeah.
up with anything libertarian. I've actually, the older I get, the less political I am, and the more I'm just like, don't want to deal with it at all. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say and what's going on. But I don't even know how you could be libertarian and think that the government can tell you how to live your life. That's insane. That's the opposite, I think. Right?
I mean, you would think, yeah, but I
Okay.
think it was. I mean, I don't want to like mischaracterize them or whatever, but I mean, who gives a shit, right? But like, they were basically saying, well, if you get your vaccine, it's good for everybody and it'll help. I don't know. It was kind of just the same thing as what the liberals and all of them were saying. Yeah, get your shot, get your booster, just keep on doing it. And there are just people now who are still saying, yeah, get your shot, get your booster. You're just like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? Like, what? and like Donald Trump, when he was president, he had a lot to do with it. I mean, he was the one that brought in Fauci. And so, now he's trying to run again. And maybe he's trying to hopefully nobody remembers that I did. I mean, and Ron DeSantis too, he had some, like he locked down his state for a while, but then he was like, oh yeah, this isn't working out. So let me not do this anymore. So he kind of course corrected and realized that he was wrong, which is, I mean, that's rare nowadays for politicians to be like, oh yeah, I messed up here. Let me try and right this wrong. And it's,
Well, there was mass hysteria going on, and it's hard to wrap your mind around what was happening at that time, where you couldn't turn on cable news without the death counter going down on one side and the cases on the other side, and showing the states and the different colors, and everyone's dying, and this is all so crazy. Now, I didn't fall for any of that because I don't watch cable news, and I remember distinctly being out somewhere when we were finally allowed to go and sit at a bar and have lunch. And I don't watch CNN. And they had CNN on, and I was just looking up at it. There's no sound, but I'm looking up and I'm like, oh, no wonder everyone's losing their fucking minds.
Mhm.
You could do this for car accidents or cancer or anything that you wanted to do. If you wanted everyone to be like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the world. If you have a counter going, it's just like climbing. And I mean, they should do it for the debt, but we don't have to get into that. But yeah, I mean, I understand why most of the governors and I'm not a Trump defender by any means, but Trump was getting hammered to the point where it's like, well, you better start shutting shit down or else you're the worst president ever. And I think that he kind of like fell into that, like, oh, all right, everyone's saying I should. I guess I got to go along with this thing. And Fauci, oh, don't even get me started on that asshole.
Yeah. Well, another aspect too about it is that flu cases just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
Where
that's weird, right?
Yeah, it was just, oh yeah, we had flu in 2020 or 2019 or whatever, and then 2020, 2021, and all that's like, oh, flu just completely disappeared. Oh, where'd it go? I don't know. Somewhere over here. I don't know. No, COVID's here now. That's the new flu. Oh wait, you can't say that. Sorry, whoops. You can't say that COVID's new flu.
I asked my friend Dr. Steve about that because he is a practicing physician, and I asked him, like, what is going on? How did the flu just go away? And Steve's a smart guy, and he's like, no, Karl, I mean, we test our patients, and literally we went from, whatever percentage it was, whatever number it was, to 0. And I was like blown away by that. And people say maybe, social distancing and staying inside or something, but it doesn't make any sense, does it? That the flu just goes away for a year and a half? It's bizarre.
I mean, yeah, you would think it would still be around, but apparently, according to the World Health Organization, no, the flu doesn't even, what's the flu? I don't know. What is that? I never heard of it before.
Yeah.
Because the COVID was the whole thing that everybody was, like you were saying, they were freaking out about because CNN had their death ticker or whatever. And I don't know. It was just, I mean, I'm glad that people are starting to just get fed up with it. And I know
Well,
some people.
it's crazy because when that was happening, I mean, I used to listen to Alex Jones and all the conspiracy theorists and all this stuff with the Great Reset. I don't know how deep you want to go with any of this stuff. You can stop me at any time.
No, keep
But
going.
well, when you think about things like the Great Reset and, people are like, well, that's conspiracy and they're not going to shut down society and try to recreate everything. And then all of a sudden you got Trudeau up in Canada, my governor Cuomo, Build Back Better, Great Reset. Like all of a sudden all these people are just like saying it out loud. Like, yeah, this is our chance. We're going to lock everyone down and we're going to completely change society because of global warming or whatever. They're just coming up with ideas or reasons to do all this shit. And for people like Alex Jones, people who follow that kind of thing, you're like, oh my God, they've been predicting this for decades.
Yeah.
And it's happening right now. They're using this COVID thing as an excuse. People are getting the sniffles. And so now we have to shut down society and recreate everything. And so for someone like me who had kind of like been following that sort of thing, I was vindicated is not the word. Vindicate. I mean, in no way am I like, yay, I was right. But
Right.
I'm just like, this is terrifying. This is what I thought would happen. This is exact. And a lot of people are still like fine with it, which is crazy to me. There's a lot of, I was just having this conversation with my wife tonight where there's a lot of people who are just like, yeah, no, they didn't do anything wrong. They made the right moves. What? Nope. Not even close. And then the nice thing is a lot of other people realize like, oh, this is scary that the government can do this and just shut down people's lives and livelihoods on a whim whenever they want to. The idea that there was a lot of the talk that was going on at the time was how shut down each state was. And then they'd look at cases and deaths. And they were basically saying that it was the government's job to stop people from getting sick. And everyone was just like, yeah, of course it is. Wait, what? If you're telling me that you're giving the government the responsibility of keeping people healthy from a communicable disease, then we will never have liberty and freedom ever again. Because how could you think the government has anything to do with that? That's insane. That's up to you. That's your choice of how you live your life and what you do.
Yeah. And if like before all this COVID stuff was happening, if you were thinking, yeah, I really want liberty and freedom and all this stuff, it seemed like there was some ounce of possibility that could happen. Like it's a very small chance because, I mean, let's face it, like we're not going to live in this free, 100% free society in our lifetime. That's just not going to happen.
No.
But then with this happening, with all, when the lockdowns are going on, the mask mandates and the vaccine and all those, the passports or whatever, like there was people who were, that I saw again, like on Twitter, were like, if libertarians, like, I don't know, like, do the libertarians have the power to stop this? No, because they were going along with it. Like I was saying, there were libertarians who were like, yeah, this is fine. I don't want it as bad. Like, I don't want it as much as what they're doing. But they were like, yeah, they were taking pictures of themselves with the mask on and I got abandoned him. I just got my shot. Yeah, it was, yeah. Your face is exactly the reaction. I'm like, wow.
Those are not libertarians then, because that does not compute to me.
Yeah, it was insane for sure. And there's people who they used to be libertarian and then they go, well, if libertarians don't have any power, then what's the point? Like, what's the point of? Yeah,
they don't. The government does. That's the funny thing about, this is the thing I always say about libertarians is they hate the government. And so they don't want to work there. And that's why libertarians will never run anything. That's why, Washington, D.C. is such a cesspool. I think they vote 97% Democrat in D.C. Like, what does that tell you? It's like, well, they want to have a bigger government. They want to have more jobs. They want to make more money. They want more money coming into DC. So that's the party that you vote for to get more of that going on. You're never going to see a bunch of libertarians hanging out in DC and having shindigs. They want nothing to do with those people. They don't like those people.
Well, I think if libertarians were more, like you were saying, they just need to have the power. Like if they had more power, then they would want to be more like, because there's all libertarians who want to be a part of the Libertarian Party, But being a part of a third party, I mean, and we've seen it time and time and time again. Oh, 5% of the vote. Ooh, wow, congratulations. Republicans and Democrats are ruling us right now. Maybe you should try and infiltrate one of those parties. I would say Republican. That's just my personal preference. I'd rather a Republican than a Democrat. But
well, Democrats have become authoritarians now. And that was never the
especially
case.
with all the COVID stuff for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was never the case. It's so weird how things have flipped because now they're like pro-war.
Yeah.
Like Trump was president, he's like, we got to bring our troops home. Why are we overseas? This is insane. And then as soon as Biden takes over, we're like fighting Russia for some reason and all this crazy shit. But what's crazy is that in the 60s, it was the Democrats who were anti-Vietnam. They had the question authority bumper stickers.
Mhm.
They were not for big government. They didn't like the FBI and the CIA. They had a problem with the deep state. And now it's just the opposite. Now they're like all on board with it. And they're like, if you question authority, you should be taken off of Twitter and YouTube. And they're fine with that. Like, well, yeah, but Fauci said, like, what are you doing? You're ruining the narrative that we're working on here. It's like, how did this flip like this? It's so bizarre to me. This used to be about freedom, and now you're all about authoritarianism.
Yeah, and again, there's libertarians who think they're on Ukraine's side with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. Which, I mean, look, like you can definitely say that. Yeah, you can definitely say that. You know what Putin and the Russian regime there is doing in Ukraine is. You know, I mean, they're killing people. I mean, let's just people are dying over there. I mean, it's not good.
They didn't start it though. You know,
well, yeah, exactly. What I was gonna say is that, and I know like recently, Dave Smith was on Joe Rogan Experience, and like I see his videos popping up on Twitter all over the place. Where he's like, he was kind of explaining what was going on, and there's libertarians who were like, no, it wasn't that way. It was actually this, and the reason why NATO was expanding was because Russia. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's a completely weird thing that's happening where whatever side you're on, you have to, if you're on Russia's side, then that means you're like pro-fascism or whatever. I don't know. I can't just take one side on something and then that makes me everything. I'm everything this now. Like I am a complete Nazi because I think Putin was provoked and NATO was going on his border, and Putin's like, well, I got no choice. I told you I was gonna do something. My red line was this, and you crossed it. So guess what? Now I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do, and now it's happening.
Right.
And yeah, it's not good.
Well, when you talk about libertarians, let me ask you this.
Okay.
I always think like our founding fathers, the people who wrote the Constitution were libertarians. I feel like that's what this country was started to be, was a libertarian state. And we've slowly gotten away from that. Am I crazy to say that? Is that wrong?
I mean, you definitely have an argument there for sure. I mean, but then you go, oh, the founding fathers were libertarians. Well, didn't they own slaves back then? I mean, that's like the first thing they would go to. Well, slavery was huge back then, so I guess libertarians believe in slavery. I mean, come on.
Isn't it funny how the U.S. invented slavery? Like that only happened in the United States of America. It's the only place where this slavery ever existed in the history of the world. Just FYI. Okay.
Yeah, there's never white people that owned other white people, or like the Japanese trying to take over the Chinese or whatever. You know, it never happened.
There's a million examples. There's a million examples of it. It's all over the Bible. There were slaves all the time. It wasn't even frowned upon. You're like, well, yeah, of course, those people aren't slaves. Yeah, duh.
Yeah. So like, I guess, for you, like a lot of people, when they say that they became libertarian, like either was the Ron Paul moment when they saw Ron Paul debate in the GOP debates, and they saw that confrontation with Giuliani, where he was like the only one up in that stage kind of saying, hey, you know, the reason why that we're like 9/11 happened was because America was doing this, and it was like, hey, you know, and then it happened, and then, you know, it wasn't just, oh yeah, America good and everyone else bad. It wasn't that. It was actually a little more nuanced to it than what everyone was thinking. Like you were saying when you were talking about George W. Bush and how, let's go to Iraq. That sounds like a good plan. And then you realize, oh wow, they were lying to us this whole time. What else are they lying to us about?
And it's funny too, because we felt like we were threatened by Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever. It's like, they don't have an Air Force. They don't have a Navy. I live in Rochester, New York. I don't have to worry about ISIS. They're not coming after me. It's fine. I'm
mean,
not
yeah,
saying there aren't issues over there, but yeah,
Right.
it's by the way, it's funny how when Ron Paul was running for president, I think it was 2008, maybe.
Yeah, 08 and 12, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember those Republican debates. Back then I was into it. I was watching it. He would win every debate. And it was like hands down. Like everyone was just like, holy shit, this guy won this debate. And they'd always play it down afterwards. They're like, Ron Paul won the debate, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So anyway, we got this guy. It's like, wait a second. So you're saying this one politician actually understands what's going on and has the answers, but we have to dismiss him for some reason? Why? Why is that? That was a very bizarre. That really opened my eyes to things. I'm like, the media won't even talk to Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Like luckily he's able to get on the debate stage and get his point of view out, but nowhere else can you even hear that. It's not even allowed on television otherwise.
Yeah, and now I think they're really trying to make that not happen because Joe Biden announced he's going to be running again, which, I mean, good luck with that. He might die in the next hour or so who knows.
Right.
So like you got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think, or just RFK. He's going to be running on the Democrat ticket, which, I mean, he's good on some things, bad on other things, but hey, he seems like he's better than Joe Biden. So, we'll see how that goes.
By the way, I have to say this about RFK Jr. because a lot of people like shit on him and say, oh, he's an anti-vaxxer and he's crazy. If there's one thing that you should learn from what happened from during the pandemic is that big pharma is not to be trusted. They have proven that, okay, have they created medicine and things that have changed our lives? Yes. And for decades, we have a better lifestyle because of the things that the pharmaceutical industry has created. But do we need to keep these people in check and not let them just fucking do whatever they want? Because RFK Jr. is completely correct about the vaccines and the fact that, like, as soon as you get this approval, you can't be sued anymore. You have immunity from that. You can cause a ton of harm and there's no risk to big pharma. And there's a reason why. And I'm upset that we're one of two countries in the world that allows pharmaceuticals to advertise on television. It's just us in New Zealand. And there's a reason why every advertisement during news programming is for some type of crazy drug that you have to take for the rest of your life. It's never just like, hey, aspirin, take it when you need it. Everything is like, do you have this and this and this? Well, get on this thing. And then you'll be hooked on it. And you might down the road need to take this thing and that thing. And then there's another thing too. They'll supplement those things that will stop the other thing from it. It's like, and obviously we're the most prescribed country in the world. There's a reason for that. It's not healthy. It's not good.
Yeah, and then side effects include, your ass might start hurting and you have upset stomach and runny nose and all this stuff. It's like, wait, all I wanted to do was to clear a headache and now I'm getting all these 15, 20 different side effects. What the hell?
My favorite disclaimer on those ads is that they'll be like, don't take blah, blah, blah if you're allergic to it. Like, well, I don't know. How do I know if I'm allergic to it? They're like, you're acting like it's my fault that I took your drug and had an allergic reaction.
I got to do some research. Damn it.
How the fuck do you know if you're allergic to it unless you take it? Anyway.
Yeah, because if you take it and you're allergic to it, you might die.
Yeah, you might die. And then they're like, why'd you take it? You're allergic to it. I didn't know. It's brand new. I don't know. I don't tell you. Anyway.
And, like speaking of the vaccine and whatever, like with Operation Warp Speed, like that was the whole point of it, was to get this vaccine out for COVID. Right. When the normal time frame of when a vaccine is first introduced to like trials or when they're first doing it or whatever, to when they take that on public is like, I don't know, 5-10 years, whatever. It's a long time, where sometimes that can feel like it's too long. But the fact that it was just, warp speed, that's the whole point. We got to get this out as fast as possible. And Donald Trump's like, I got that vaccine out so fast. And he's bragging about it. And even some of his own fans are like, no, don't talk about that. Stop it.
Well, the scariest thing is there's two things here. First off, I used to be in marketing. The word vaccine is a marketing term now because it's not a vaccine. Like it doesn't make you immune. It doesn't stop you from getting it or spreading it. It's not a vaccine. They use the word vaccine, so you're like, oh, you don't believe in this Pfizer medication? You must be an anti-vaxxer. No. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. It's not a vaccine and it doesn't work. And by their own research, it obviously does not work. So it's like they're moving the goalposts on us and acting like we're the crazy people who don't want to get this experimental drug pumped into us to see if it works or not. And I forgot what my second point was going to be, but mainly though is that, yeah, if it actually worked and it did what it was supposed to do, I think all of us would have been, that was the other point I was going to make. I think all of us would have been fine with it if it did what it was going to do, but because they forced it on people because you were going to lose your job if you didn't get it, I think the strategy there was to eliminate a control group. Because I used to be very involved in clinical studies as a marketing professional. I worked with a lot of companies that did that. And I understand how science works. Like a clinical study is very important. You have to have a group of people, two groups of people. So you have to understand the difference between taking the drug and not taking the drug and statistically figure out what that means. And by forcing everyone to take these vaccines, there's no control group. So it's like, well, okay, I mean, cardiac arrest is up, but that could be anything. We don't know, because there isn't a control group. So you can't just be like, all right, but what about men 20 to 29 who didn't take the vaccine versus 2029 who did? Like, that's not a thing. Doesn't exist. We don't have that data. We can't analyze that. That's on purpose.
It's like when Joe Rogan was talking about how he didn't get vaccinated. He took ivermectin. And people were saying, "Oh, you're taking a horse dewormer," because they're trying to like disprove him or make him seem some crazy person, whatever. He's still, running around doing whatever he did. Never got vaccinated, so clearly, it doesn't work for everybody. I mean, okay, if you're an older person from like 65 and up, then yeah, maybe consider taking the vaccine if you feel like that's your only hope to survive this thing. Then yeah, by all means, do it. But then when they're trying to do it to young children, babies, even like, come on, no, that was not.
I mean, it's just, it wasn't tested. It'd be fine if it was tested and it was safe, but it wasn't. And they were just trying to force it on everyone. That Joe Rogan thing is very interesting. Remember when he had the CNN physician on, Sanjay Gupta? Yeah. And he had him on and he just fucking annihilated him. Because this guy comes on and he's science and he's the medical community, he understands everything. And Joe's like, why is your network saying I'm taking horse dewormer? People have taken ivermectin for decades. It won a Nobel Prize. It's a very important medicine that people take. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't know why they did that. He's like, well, there's like 50,000 examples of people on CNN saying I'm taking horse dewormer, and that's misleading. And he goes, and by the way, my doctor prescribed this to me. Don't doctors have the right to prescribe drugs to their patients that they think will help them? And the other thing with Joe Rogan that I loved during this entire pandemic is he was the only person when everyone was just like, shut down in your house, eat potato chips on the couch, and watch Netflix. The only way we're going to survive this. Joe Rogan was like, no, go outside, work out, exercise, pump iron, go for a jog, like get some vitamin D. These are the things that will help your immune system. And I do think that it might be something to, we're going to get kicked off of whatever platform you're on. It might have something to do with the vaccines. But I think just like people being lumps of shit for so long fucked up everyone's immune system. And so now people are getting even more sick and especially children, which is terrible. But I think a lot of people are getting a lot more sick than they would have because they were just avoiding germs and bacteria for so long. It's like, that's not the way that the world works. That's not healthy. You can't be the boy in the bubble forever. Eventually you got to take the bubble off, and then what's going to happen?
Yeah. And the fact that he was saying that, not just straight up, just take the vaccine and kind of just regurgitating the talking points of the pharmaceutical companies. And also the fact that his podcast is getting way more viewers than anyone on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, probably combined,
Correct.
and, like with just recently Tucker Carlson being whatever happened there, whatever he was fired, whatever the circumstances behind him leaving Fox News, and Don Lemon leaving CNN. I mean, who gives a shit? I mean, Don Lemon, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But Tucker Carlson leaving, if he just decided that he's just going to do a podcast a la Joe Rogan, or even goes on the Joe Rogan podcast and does a guest spot there, he's going to get more views than he ever got on his show.
There was a funny thing. I can't remember what I was watching, but I watch a lot of podcasts and stuff. And one of the shows was playing The View and their reaction to Tucker Carlson getting blown out. And it was so lame. They're like all applauding. They're all excited. They're singing na 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 goodbye.
Wow.
And it's like, do you understand Tucker Carlson doesn't need Fox News? How dumb are you people? You don't think Tucker Carlson could go on YouTube or Rumble tomorrow and still have 20 million viewers or 15 million viewers? Like way more people than would ever watch The View in a million years. Like, it's like, what do you think is getting shut down here? It's this people like Tucker Carlson because he's the only one who's actually speaking the counter narrative on television. He's the only one, even on Fox. He was the only person who was saying things about January 6th. And, you know, I could go on and on, myriad of things that was counter to the bullshit that's been proven so many times that the media is lying to us, whether it's Hunter Biden's laptop or the, you know, Russian conspiracy with Trump or the COVID vaccines. There are huge lies that have been repeated for months and years. And it's like, okay, so who trusts the media at this point? Like, how dumb do you have to be to tune in to MSNBC or read the New York Times and think like, this is probably accurate. This is probably right.
And it's not like the corporate press hasn't been doing this since the beginning of the press doing this. It's just the fact that social media, which is probably one of the good things about social media, is the fact that this stuff gets amplified. A lot of people see it that probably wouldn't have seen it otherwise and go, oh yeah, like you were saying, the distrust of media is so high that a lot of the like MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, whatever, they're trying to scramble. What do we do? How can we beat Joe Rogan Experience? Well, you're probably not going to unless you try and maybe make a podcast, I guess, because nobody's going to be watching your stupid channel because everybody's
it's too
watching.
predictable. You know exactly what their point of view is going to be. I was just I was listening to my buddy Drew Lane on the Drew and Mike show today, and they were just talking about how this is scary to me. They were laughing about it, and I'm like, well, this is actually really scary. They're talking about how the recent Joe Biden press conference, it was leaked that Joe Biden had all of the names of the reporters and what their question was going to be. So he would call, and actually pictures of them too, because he's so fucking stupid that he has to see the photo of the guy and be like, oh, Bill, what's your question? And he already knows the answer. Like that was the whole point of a free press. That's why the founding fathers, to get back to the Constitution again, that's why we put this together, was to keep our government in check. Like, all right, well, we're going to investigate what you guys are up to, and we're going to call it out to the people who vote on you, to determine what you're doing is good for us or not. And that's completely gone. We completely have the federal government and our mainstream media are in cahoots together. They work together 100% to form a narrative that they tell all of us. And I don't believe any of it. I'm shocked that people do. It's crazy.
So speaking of forming a narrative, your podcast, Who Are These Podcasts, has been around for, I believe since 2016, excuse me. And so like from the first episode to where you are now, you've reviewed a lot of bad podcasts. There have probably been some gems in there. I'm not talking about the ones where it became a segment on your show. I'm talking about just it overall. Like there were some terrible, like the audio quality was bad. The host just couldn't talk. I mean, I'm one to say, because I definitely flub my words sometimes, and I sure did it quite a few times. I was like, where I'm stuttering, right? So from your beginning to now, like what would you say is the mentality of a good podcaster as opposed to a bad podcaster?
Oh, that's a great question, and I think I could spell it out for you. I think I knew this from day one because I'm a fan of radio. I used to listen to morning radio. I used to listen to political radio, sports talk radio. I was a fan of a lot of different genres of radio. And the thing about radio is there's a lot of bad things about it, but you get professional broadcasters and a team around them of producers and programming directors who understands what's compelling and what works and what doesn't. And so what a lot of podcasters do is they think they can just like sit down and shoot the shit. There's no prep being done. They're just like, oh, I'll just have a conversation with my buddy because last night we were at the bar together and we were cracking each other up. So let's just do that and we'll just make it a podcast. Some people can do that. Very few and far between. Some people can. Shane Gillis can do it. Not many people can do that. Joe Rogan can do it. But for the most part, what I think makes the right mentality is to say, like, I want to make a show. And when we started Who Are These Podcasts, my whole thought was, this is going to be a show. We're going to have segments. We're going to have stingers. We're going to have sounders. There's going to be things that remind people like this is a thing that we do on the show so that it's something that people are ready for and are tuning in for and excited about. That was the thing that I learned from the radio shows that I enjoyed is that you tune in because the Whack Packers on Howard Stern. And you can't wait for the next time Eric, the actor, is going to come on. Or Opie and Anthony doing Jocktober. It's like, oh, good, they're doing a Jocktober segment. Or they're talking about hoarders from last night. But there were these things that they would do that got you used to, like, this is what they do. These are like some of the recurring segments. And it made it more coherent as a show. And I'll tell you this. I've been doing live shows for the last couple of years now. We just did a live show in Philly. My first live show was in Chicago almost 2 years ago now. And one of the things I learned from watching a live audience react to the show is the response you get from drops that you play.
Drop!
Like I have a soundboard. Producer Chris on my show has a soundboard. And we have these drops that we play. And, a lot of them are from like South Park or Rick and Morty or whatever. But it like works its way into the show where that becomes something that people can relate to and latch onto. And they go, it's incredible to watch a live audience when you all of a sudden you hit a drop from South Park or something and people light up and laugh and enjoy it because it's like, oh, this is the thing that people know about the show that we do. And it sounds corny and a lot of people make fun of me for doing it, but having jingles and when I started Who Are These Socials with Blind Mike, he's a big radio fan too. One of the things we talked about was this is going to be a show that moves. We're going to have segments. We're going to move along. We're going to have stingers in between segments, let people know. And so we developed this whole show knowing this was going to be like a radio show. Radios has time. They have to hit the breaks. They have to go into the different segments. Podcasts don't. So they can just ramble on and on and on and no one's stopping them. I like the format of radio to say like, okay, we have a 15-minute segment and then we're going to go to commercial break. So we got to get all the stuff in and this is what we're going to talk about these 15 minutes. I just think that's a more regimented way to approach a show. I was very long-winded. I apologize. I was trying to say how quickly I move things along and I was very long-winded saying that. Whoops.
No, that was a good answer. When you start a podcast to wherever it ends up, however long it goes, you definitely learn about yourself too. Like, oh yeah, because I know for me, like I hear myself say, a lot. I hear people say like a lot like that. Especially when you review a podcast where you do like a compilation of someone saying a word over and over and over again. You're just like, oh man,
the crutch words. The crutch words are crazy to me, and they've actually trained me to be a better speaker because now I listen to myself. I don't want to be that person. So I work very hard. And there are things that I say, I'm not going to tell you what they are, that when I listen back to shows when I'm editing, I go, fuck, why do I always say that? And sometimes people pick up on them, sometimes they don't, but it does bug the shit out of me when a podcaster has crutch words.
I think one of my crutch words is I like to say, yeah, even if, so, blah, blah, blah. I say that a lot. I probably said it a few times here. That's definitely
mine is so.
Oh, really?
I say so. And I don't even think that's a normal thing. I say, if I'm having a conversation with people, I don't think I say, so anyway, but when I'm doing a podcast, for some reason, I say it 50 times a show and it's so annoying.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's like you're saying, it's like you go from normal speak to now I gotta go to a podcast speak. And for whatever
Yeah.
reason, I'll say words that I don't ever say that. How come I say,
Right.
all the time, or yeah, or like? It doesn't make any. I remember, I think Gavin McGinnis made fun of that, where he was like, stop saying like, you're not a 10-year-old girl. Like, stop saying that. Something like that, he said.
No, he's right. Yeah, exactly.
So I guess about the podcast that you've reviewed, is there any that when you were going to review, like you do like a teaser, okay, I haven't actually gotten into it yet, and then you get into it, but before you're thinking this isn't going to be good, and then it's actually kind of good. I'll actually probably listen to it again, and then on the flip side, one where you go, oh, I can't wait to get into this, and you go, this actually sucks.
Yeah. So there's been a couple examples of shows that I reviewed that I actually enjoyed listening to. And the one that I always think about is Michael Rappaport. And I remember I had Trucker Andy and his brother Joe over, and they had pulled their clips and I had pulled my clips. And the thing with Michael Rappaport is that he has like 16,000 one-star reviews or something like that. It was like this crazy number. It's like he's the only guy with this many one-star reviews. So I really dug in to find out why that was, because I was fascinated by that. So I have my co-hosts over and we're talking about it, and I enjoyed his show, and I threw them off because every other episode I'm going on, I'm like, this guy sucks, this is terrible, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden these guys show up thinking that's going to be that style show, and I go, no, I actually enjoyed this show, guys. I'll tell you why. And I'm laughing along with Rappaport, and I'm having fun with it. And I asked them, I'm like, do you guys know why he has 16,000 one-star reviews? And I think it was Andy was just like, well, yeah, he calls out the teams people like. And so, if they're not a Knicks fan, they don't like him. Like, nope, it has nothing to do with that. It was because he had a falling out with Barstool, and he called out Dave Portnoy, and people love Dave Portnoy and they love Barstool. And so he had all these stoolies come together to give him one-star reviews, and it was like this big thing, and I had all the clips and I had all the history behind it, and I found it fascinating and very interesting, and I was not expecting that to be the narrative of the show at all. It wasn't until I sat down and started listening, I'm like, this show is good. Why don't people like it? I really started to do a deep dive research into what was going on there, and then turned out I liked it a lot. Another example actually is the Dick Show. I mentioned that earlier. So Dick Masterson, I just did a live show with him in Philadelphia. He does a show called The Dick Show. And Vinny Paulino came over, and we were going to make fun of his show. And we made fun of it, but there were points in it. I'm like, this guy's good. He's making good points, and he's actually funny and entertaining. And it's cool that like there are shows we make fun of, like Who's Right and the Official Podcast and The Dick Show and Good Times, Great Movies, where we make fun of a show and the hosts aren't butthurt about it. They're like, that's fine. I get it. I'm not perfect. And then they become friends of the show, and now they're like co-hosting with me. And there's a lot of people whose shows I've reviewed and made fun of who I'm now very friendly with, and they come on the show and co-host episodes with me, and it's great. We do very well with that.
I think Doug from Who's Right is another one that you reviewed, and
Yeah.
he's on your show a few times.
Oh, Doug's great. I love him on my show. I listen to Who's Right here and there. I check in on it. It's not for me, but they're killing it. They're doing really well. So I'm happy for them.
Yeah. And Dick Masterson that you've mentioned, he definitely has that voice that, like, once you hear it, that's Dick. Like, he has a unique voice. Like, it's something you can't even get.
There's a lot of people who don't like it. I get it.
Yeah.
Whenever I have Dick on my show, and I love having Dick on my show, I think he's great. But whenever I do, I get a number of people who are like, well, skipping this episode, I cannot listen to that screechy, high pitch, whatever they think it is. I don't hear it. I think it's fine, but yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess on the flip side of that, like about any podcast that you were wanting to get into, and then you found out it was, this is actually not as good as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was actually going to be kind of fun, but actually it's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have high expectations ever going into these
Yeah,
shows.
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, so I'm having a hard time thinking of a show that I did where I thought it was going to be good and it was worse. It's usually as bad as I think it's going to be,
or maybe maybe not good, but just something. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this, and then after, like, why was I looking forward to this? This is
right. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll say this. there are shows, like most of the shows that most of the shows we review are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because most podcasts are bad. So that's not coincidental. That's just how that works mathematically. Now, there are shows that are bad, but hard to clip. And the whole point of our show is we come on and we go, all right, so here's the show. Let me play you an example of what I'm talking about. Play a 15-second, 30-second clip and then explain, yeah, this is why this sucks. And I know the context of it, so I can explain what it is about that clip that's not good or why they're talking about this or whatever. There are shows that are so bad, like I can't even clip them. Like, this is just boring. This is just so boring. And the best example I can give you, and I think this is crazy, I'm saying this, is Howard Stern.
Yeah.
Howard Stern, his show has gotten so bad. It's terrible. It's nothing like it used to be. I was the biggest Stern fan, and I stopped listening right around the time when the lockdowns happened. I just couldn't take it anymore.
He's an example of that guy who just completely took the kool-aid of all that stuff. All the COVID stuff.
100%. He wants to be locked down forever, but he's a billionaire who has people deliver all the stuff he needs to his house. That's the funny thing, is that people are like, you'd be crazy to go out in public. Like, well, don't you need people to deliver food to your house? Well, yeah, I need those people. Oh, so the peasants are allowed to be out in public and be delivering things to your house, but not you. Okay, I get it. Right. That makes perfect sense. Like, you can't actually shut down society. Everyone would die. So that's why when the lockdowns happened, I was just like, how is this going to work? Well, there's essential workers. The guy at the gas station, he's an essential worker? What? Doesn't even make sense. Anyway, not the point. The point is, I'm watching Howard Stern or listening to Howard Stern over the past few months, and I've been pulling some clips and I've been doing segments on him. It is unbearable. And it's not even clippable. It's so slow moving. It's so boring. And I'll sit there and I'll listen for an hour and I'll have 0 clips. And I'm like, I could have been doing anything else at this time. This was a waste of my time. I have nothing to talk about from this. It's just terrible. I'm sorry. I'm getting a thing in my throat. Give me 1 second. Cut that part out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Howard Stern, like, before becoming from who he was to, I'm Mr. Outsider. I'm a rebel to, no, I'll be part of the thing now. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's
he always wanted to have celebrity friends. And so
Yeah.
now he's figured out a way to do that. And he's friends with all the celebrities and he loves it. That's what he wants to do. And so he's lost his edge. He's lost anything that anyone who's a Stern fan ever liked about him. He's just the opposite of what he used to be. He's always been a germaphobe. So the whole COVID thing is not surprising that he wanted to hide in his basement because that's his thing. But when he was talking about, when that first went down, I got so mad. They would order food from restaurants and they would microwave salads to make sure there was no COVID on the salad.
The fuck?
Dude, he was nuts. And he would talk about this like it's normal behavior. When they delivered all of the equipment to his house, SiriusXM did, so that he could broadcast from home. Because when they first started, they were doing Zoom with like their laptop mics. It sounded like shit. So they delivered all this equipment, and Howard didn't touch it for, I think it's 3 days was the rule back then. After 3 days, the COVID didn't survive.
Yeah.
So you can now touch the stuff that came. I mean, none of that was true, but that was science for you. So Howard was talking about like, yeah, they delivered all this equipment and we didn't even go near that for 3 days. And then we set it up. I'm like, okay, you're a lunatic.
I didn't want to touch the material, Robin. I didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
Well,
he used to yell at his dad, who's now passed away. His dad lived to be 99 years old. But at that time, his dad read the New York Times every day. And Howard would yell at his dad. He talked about this on air. You can't pick up the newspaper. You're going to get COVID. You don't know where that newspaper's been. And we would tell his dad not to like read the newspaper. It's like, none of this is based in anything. It's not how COVID works at all, but okay.
So, like, talking about politics, you've covered a really good political commentator, and that's John Melendez. He's a really good political commentator.
Yeah. He's got his finger on the pulse.
Like you were talking about how some people have taken what you've done and become friends, whatever, and he's the complete opposite.
Yes.
Not specifically him, but just kind of the whole, like, again, the whole history of the show. Like, what have you learned through all of this in terms of how people have like just podcasting, like for you, the podcasting in general, and how podcasting has kind of grown since when you started to now. I know that's kind of a weird question because I think the John Melendez thing was just kind of me just wanting to say that, but
okay. So what I wanted to say when you brought up John Melendez is there's people who get it and people who don't get it. And it's so shocking to me, the people who are so thin-skinned that you just go, hey, this guy, he's not the best at podcasting. And they immediately want you killed. Like John Melendez was threatening to have my legs broken from the first podcast we did about his show. And, he's going to sue me and all this stuff. It's like, oh, dude, you don't get it. Like, you got to, like, this isn't just podcast. It's just life. You got to roll with the punches a little bit. You got to have a sense of humor about yourself. You got to understand that, like, you're not the greatest broadcaster of all time, stuttering John Melendez. I'm sorry to tell you that. I can't believe no one's told you that before, but I'm going to let you know. And when someone says that to me, I was just talking about this. I was just on Casey Armstrong's show, and we were talking about Misery Loves Company. I got to go on that show this past Tuesday, and for about 2 years, they've been making fun of me on that show.
Oh yeah.
Kevin Brennan, not a fan of mine, goofing on me. Chad Zumock's on that show, goofing on me. But I am a fan of that show. I watch it because it's funny. And I don't care if they're making fun of me, or they're making fun of Chad, or they're making fun of whatever. If you're funny, you're funny. And that's like the best way to live your life, is to just have a good sense of humor about yourself and enjoy things. I never took it personally. Kevin Brennan doesn't know who I am. He was goofing on in the Nice Stuff video I made. He didn't even understand the context of it. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. You don't get it. That's fine. It's not for everyone. But the fact that people like Stuttering John and some of these podcasters out there who get like so upset and so butthurt, like, dude, you don't understand fundamentals of life and how to just get along and enjoy your life and not let things bother you so much. You'd have so much more fun if you just smiled and laughed, and you can ignore things you don't want to deal with. That's fine. Or you can enjoy them for what they are and just have a laugh at it. But it's insane to me how personally people take some of the reviews we do. I do a roast style show. It's a roast. And if you ever watched a roast or been a part of one, some very mean, cutting things are said and everybody laughs. That's the whole point of it. Like, we're all having fun here. Relax, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, you've done it before where you've done like Cringe of the Week is a segment on your show, and you've had a few cringes of the week where it was you were the cringe of the week because oh yeah, I said something, someone sent this to me and I said something stupid or whatever, so here we are, here it is, let's see what it was. And
Cringe of the week.
I also have a lot of times my friends as cringe of the week, whether it's the Drew and Mike show or Dick Masterson, or there's been a number of times when I'm like, guys, I was listening to my buddy's show or a show I enjoy, and I heard this and I play it. But it's not like I think Dick's going to text me and be like, all right, we're done. We're not friends anymore. It's like, we're all in on the joke. It's fine. Dick goofs on me all the time. It's fine. It's way more fun way to live life.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I try to work on as well. Like trying to when to take things seriously, when to kind of be lighthearted. And it's definitely it's a hard balance sometimes where, is this person actually like joking? Or are they actually making fun of me? It does sometimes kind of like mesh in a way where you don't really know what is what. But when you're specifically, like you say, you're specifically a roast show, and people, like you said, people have seen like comedy roast where, the whole point, unless you're Norm Macdonald, the whole point is to be mean.
Yeah.
So
mean in a funny way. Right. Exactly.
Right.
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons why I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and we talked a lot of politics today, but I've gotten out of that. Like, I don't pay a lot of attention to political shows and politics because it is so serious. It's so goddamn serious all the time. And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like being serious all the time. I just want to, you know me, I'm a smile talker. I like to have fun and laugh and joke. I'm more into comedy than I am into libertarianism.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do with this show. Like, obviously we're kind of more of a political cultural show, but we like to make fun of what's happening. Like, we'll watch a video and mock it. That's kind of, that's what I'm trying to do here.
You gotta laugh at things, or else you will drive yourself crazy, because there's a lot of crazy bullshit going on in this world that will drive you mad.
That is definitely a fact. So Carl, go ahead. We'll end it here. Let people know where they can find your podcasts and where they can find you on social media and anything else you'd like to plug.
Yeah, whoarethese.com is our website, and that's where all the episodes are up there and all of our videos, and also the links to like our YouTube channel, the link to our Discord server, my Twitter. We have a Facebook group people created. So wherever you get podcasts, load Who Are These Podcasts, Who Are These Socials, the Creep Off. I've been really investing in YouTube lately. It's probably a bad idea, but I'm not edgy enough to get kicked off, I don't think. So if you could subscribe on YouTube, we put out a bunch of videos that are segments from the show that are a lot of fun, and it's cool to have the visual element because we do a lot of video reviews these days.
Yeah. So again, thanks, Carl, for coming on. Really do appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do this again soon. And so everyone watching and listening, thank you. And next week, our guest who is scheduled to be on is Joshua Ferguson, who was just recently on the Dr. Phil show, which if you haven't heard, Dr. Phil is ending his show. So I think Josh had to be on the last season of Dr. Phil. So we'll talk about that among other things. So, all right, we'll go and end it, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, Shane.
The truck's backing up because they're hearing us. I think it's time to end this episode.
And smash that like button.
Yeah, smash that like
Just
button.
break your computer.
And don't forget to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button.
Bye.
Bye.